So we are going to open a file into Adobe Camera Raw and start our processing workflow right from there. So this is a DNG file, a digital negative. It's you can change all of your proprietary files into DNGs, or you can work from your proprietary files of Nikon, Canon, Olympus, Sony, whatever camera you're using. We can also open up JPEGs and TIFFs into the Adobe Camera Raw dialog by clicking this little guy up here, this little icon that looks like an aperture, opening Camera Raw, it says right there. So we can click that. But we can't hit Command O for a TIFF or a JPEG. It will then just open into Photoshop. So if you want to open it into this dialog, you can click this little guy right here. So I'm just going to do that to begin. So you can see right now, I've opened it up into the Adobe Camera Raw dialog box. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do here. It's so powerful. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into my tabs, and I'm going to go to the lens correction tab. Now I'm shooting with a Sony camera on this one and the 28-70 lens. So I want to pick the Sony, the model, and then the profile. And what it's doing is it's doing any kind of correction that needs to be corrected for the lens. Lenses aren't perfect in the digital world, so we have a little jump by doing that. If you have a Canon, you're going to set in your Canon and whatever lens you're going to use. So this was already done for me, so that looks good. Now I'm going to come back here to the Basics tab. This is the very first one, and this is where we do a lot of our work. But before I get to that, I think I want to do a little bit of straightening of this file. You can see that the sides are coming in, it's kind of crooked. So I'm going to come up here into the menu up at the top and use the Transform tool. With this tool, I'm going to just click, hold, and drag a line out along what I think should be parallel. And I'm going to do it right down here as well. So I drew those two lines, and you can see it already popped it up. Over here on the left-hand side, this entryway is looking a little crooked, so I'm just going to draw another line here, and it straightened it up. And then I'm going to come over and do the same thing over here on this side and see how we can make that look. What a difference. So from this to this, just by a few clicks. I believe we can do 4 or 5 of these lines within the image. You can see them there. You can go and click on them to delete them. If I click on it and hit delete, it'll go away. I really wanted that there, so I'm going to go put it back. But that's how you can get rid of them. You can clear them as a whole by going over to the right-hand side and doing clear guides, hitting clear guides. Or you can come over here to the right-hand side again and manually, make selections in here. So you can change whatever you want. If you double click on the slider, it takes it back to the default of 0 or whatever the default is for that particular slider. Now, to get rid of those lines, I don't do anything but just click on a different tool up in the tool menu here. So the hand tool, we can move things around just like in Photoshop. The next thing I want to do is grab the white balance tool. That's going to be the second step here for me. So I'm going to look at what I think should be neutral. And I think this is looking a little blue, so I'm going to click down here. If I don't like it, I can click around in a few different spots, and you can see it's adjusting as I go. And to yellow. It's still looking a little too yellow for me, so I'm just going to pull the temperature slider down over on the right-hand side. I think that's looking a little bit better. So now we've gone from this to this. How the heck am I doing that? Well, I'm just hitting P on the keyboard. P for preview. P on the keyboard. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, I'm going to come over here to the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, vibrance, and saturation, and see what I can do here. So I'm looking at the histogram up at the top, and I'm going to come down here to the blacks. I'm just going to push this over. Do you see how as I push it over, I start to get the warning sign popping up? If I get that, I'm in a good spot. Just as soon as it starts to touch, you can either pull it back a tick so it's not, or just have it slightly. Those are the blacks in the image. So what it is, it's affecting this area in here most likely, and probably something down here. There's no detail in there, so if I push that black a little further, it's not going to really hurt anything. So you just want to be conscious of what the blacks are. You don't want to lose your shadow detail if there is any detail. Here, there's not, so I'm just going to leave that as is. Now the whites are already starting to have a warning, and what the white is, oh, you can see, I'm just going to kind of give that a little bit. This is where the whites are. So you can see right up here in the top right below the histogram, it says RGB 254, 254, 253. I can't print that. There's no info is going to really print down on the printers that we have today. So I'm going to fix that in a second. I'm going to come back to that. So I'm just going to leave that as is. For the shadows, that's our dark areas, and I want to pull out more shadows. So as you can see, when I do that, those dark areas that I was losing detail, there's actually some detail in there, so I'm pulling that back. And highlights, if I hit any kind of clouds or stuff like that, you'd push those down. And you can see in the reflection that as I push the highlights down, I'm starting to get more detail in that window. So you can just play it by ear what you want. Contrast is pushing the extremes of blacks and whites. So if I push it up, things get contrastier, darker, but you have more of a difference between the lights and the darks. So I don't want to push the contrast up too high on this one. And then your exposure, if I just pop that up a little bit, make it a little bit lighter. Ever so slightly. So that's looking pretty good so far. Oh, you know, clarity. Clarity's going to give me a little bit more crispiness around this, so I'm just going to push the clarity up. A lot of times when you push the clarity up, it's exaggerating your contrast a little bit. And here, I think it's kind of working. So that's the first step. That's just the basics panel. It's looking a lot better. So we went from this to this. I can make it look even better. So I can start to do selective adjustments within here. I can come over here to the FX, and I can come down here to the post-crop vignette. So if I push that in, I'm starting to darken my edges. I like to do that in a lot of my photographs because on this one, obviously, it's the Crazy Girls as my focus. So by giving a little bit of vignette, it's pushing my eye towards that. I can then come in here and alter the midpoint, how large that vignette is, the roundness, so I can kind of pull it out towards the edges. I can kind of push it in. The feather, how soft it is, how quickly it goes from that hard edge to the soft edge. Most of the time, you guys, we want a nice soft edge. Highlights, I'm just going to leave at the default of 0. If we wanted to, we could add grain here. Dehaze is a really cool tool, so let's just play with it just so you can see what it does. It works for pulling haze out of a landscape, but a lot of times it adds a nice little contrast and a kick to a photograph. So I'm just going to pop that up just ever so much, a smidge, plus 15. So as we're still playing here, it's looking pretty good. Now, what do all of these other tabs do? Well, don't be afraid to just click on things and see what they do. Remember a minute ago I told you that my white values were getting pretty blown out up here? Oh, they're now down within an acceptable range for these. Oh, that one's still a little high. Basically, you want your RGB values to be 250 or below. So to do that, I can just click on the point here. You have 2 here, point and parametric. So I'm just going to come to point. I'm just going to pull the output corner down to 250. And it's the top right. So these are our whites and these are our blacks. Notice this mimics our histogram. So we could come in here and play with it as if it were a curve, add contrast right here. I don't want to do that, but because I just did that, if I want to get rid of it, I just click and hold and drag those points off. What I was really doing right here was playing with the output. So once again, it's at 250. A quick way to play with a curve and see what it does, you can just kind of sit here and go, oh, what do these things do? And it's kind of doing a generic in the middle. That's like your shadows and highlights. So darks would be your shadows, highlights. You can think of it in those terms. Do I like that better than what I was liking with before? Let's see here. Remember, to get it back to 0, just double click on these because it's a slider. I actually kind of liked popping that up a little bit. I think that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to leave it like that. Now, the interesting thing is, once you set this point over on this side, it's always going to stay there, so you can't boost the light up above that 250. So you're going to have that printable area. So it's looking pretty good so far. I'd be happy with this. I could go into Photoshop, but I think I'm going to do one other thing before I get to that. Is I'm going to come over here and play a little bit with my graduated filter. So I'm back up at the top at the menus, the graduated filter. I'm going to click on that. I already have some settings dialed in here. I have an exposure of plus 40, and I'm going to, let's see, blacks were -4. Let's get that back to 0. So I'm just checking to see whatever is here. And I'm just going to pull down a gradient up here. And after I do that, I don't want plus 40. I don't want to lighten it. I want to darken it. So I'm just going to darken that down. And earlier, remember I was playing with that dehaze. I'm just going to add a little dehaze in there because I think it adds a nice little bit of drama to it. So that's looking pretty good. I'm back over on the right hand side. I can hit new, so I can add a new graduated filter. So I'm going to do that from the bottom as well. And it has the exact same settings as I had before. Just holds those settings until I go and change them. I'm going to add another new, and I'm just going to drag this over. And I can change these. Notice as I'm changing this one, it's not changing the others. So I'm just going to pull that back a little bit. Looking good. I'm going to add another new, and I'm going to pull from this side. I'm also holding the shift key while I'm doing this to keep it parallel, horizontal, vertical. And I'm going to play with this as well. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And once again, if I just click on the hand tool or any of those tools up above, that kind of goes away. So that's looking pretty cool. So if I hit P on the keyboard, we've gone from this to this, and we're doing this all within Adobe Camera Raw. One other thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this tool, the adjustment brush tool, and it's pretty small, so I'm going to make it a tick bigger. I'm going to come over here and look at what I've got in here. I'm going to push the exposure up a little bit, and I'm going to come in here to the hair and pop that. Let's see here. I can also pop up. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. Let's try the clarity. So you can see popping up the clarity and the exposure. I don't want to go make it look unnatural. Just give it a little bit more. So let's hit that up on all of these. Ooh, that one's too much on that gal. But notice right now, because I didn't hit new, it's affecting all three of them. All three of the girls. So I'm going to add a new for this one, and this one will be part of that second group. This one and this one. And down here you can have the overlay, which is showing those little buttons, so you know if I click back on this one, it makes these three active. Clicking on this one makes that active. I can hide that. You can show your mask, what the mask is looking like, so you know where you painted. And let's see here. So from that to that. Hey, this is looking pretty darn good. I'm going to open it up into Photoshop now. Where are you? There you are. Okay, so opened up into Photoshop, looking pretty good. What I would do here is I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to come in here and clean it up. Clean up some of the stuff down in the bottom here. So I'm going to do Command J. I'm going to grab my retouch tools, and I'm just going to retouch this stuff. You know, keep an eye on all the little details. This is the stuff that really makes the difference. So I'm going to go through, spend my time cleaning this up, and double click on the hand to get back to full size. I might go in and darken some of these windows up a little bit more. I think this is still a little hot. I'd probably do an adjustment layer. I can grab a curve here, use the targeted adjustment tool, come in here, pull that down. Command I to hide that, grab my brush tool, paint with white, not black, and just kind of tone that down a little bit. So I can come in here and get really selective. You know, keep an eye on the little things, you guys. Keep an eye on the little things. Yeah, I think that's helping tremendously. I'm painting with an opacity of 40% so I can keep building it up to keep the look as I would like. So let's move that out of the way up there. I think I'm going to darken this up here a little bit. So now I'm using some selective adjustments in here as well. So I got out of the Adobe Camera Raw and I'm fine-tuning it even further in Photoshop. So I think that's looking pretty good. Did I overdo that a little bit? No, I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to do the retouching. I think I might do one more little adjustment here. I'm going to come down here to another curve. I'm going to come up in here to this little area. And now I'm back over here on the curve. I'm just affecting it by hand. Do Command I, grab the brush tool, make it larger. Kind of pop that up a little bit. What happens if I do the gals down here? Same little, let's see. I think I did a little too much here, so I'll pull it off of there. Kind of like what's happening on the hair. And by turning the eyeball on and off, I'm actually seeing what's happening. So I want to hit this a little bit more. Oops, wrong way. Yeah, that's a nice little pop, even on the girls. So clean it up, be specific. Don't forget to sharpen and size your images before you turn them in. So there you go. Have fun.